has now been one whole year since what's probably going to be looked at as the most iconic and historical beef in the history of hip-hop. Kendrick Lamar versus Drake. A year ago today, I believe, as of recording, Meet the Grahams dropped, and then a day tomorrow, again as of recording, is the year since Not Like Us dropped. So yeah, you know what it is. You were there for it. You were watching it all. You were witnessing a massive cultural moment in music. And I thought, to commemorate and celebrate that historical event, we should do a tier list ranking some of the most iconic diss tracks in the history of the genre. Some of the most exciting battles between massive titans of the game in hip hop. And let's put them in order, ranking them from what's essentially worst to best. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it, really. Hopefully you enjoy this video. Hopefully you get something out of it. Just as a sort of precursor to the video, it's probably worth mentioning that I'm not of an age where I lived through basically the vast majority of these battles, these diss tracks. So if you want to take that context and, you know, do what you will with that, because I'm sure if you were there for Tupac Biggie, if you were there for Jay-Z Nas, if you were there for like 50 Cent, Ja Rule, all of the Eminem beefs, you know, all of those massive moments in the history of the genre, you might have a different feeling, a different energy towards these tracks than maybe I do, because I wasn't there for them. I mean, I'm certainly not a spring chicken anymore. I'm getting a bit on now. I might look still beautiful and young, but I'm not that young anymore, guys. I'm not that young anymore. So take that for what you will. That might change my perspective of some of these tracks, but I'm just kind of taking them for what they are, as diss tracks. My sort of analysis of those, my expectations of what I want to hear in a diss song, how the song sounds and how it's aged, I think is important as well. Would I listen to it regularly? Would it be something I could play again, or is it something that just kind of feels like it just exists as its own thing and you wouldn't really go back to it? I think that's an important thing as well. I think replayability is a bit of an underrated thing when it comes to battles and disses, because I think if you're wanting to go back and back to that track over and over, that kind of speaks to it as well. But some of these tracks just feel like you wouldn't play them more than once, essentially, and the disses themselves can be a bit weak, so we shall see. Some iconic tracks here being ranked. I'm kind of rambling on and on and on now. Let's just get on with the tier list. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Of course, create your own ranking. Click the link in the description and correct any mistakes I make, because Lord knows you will tell me the mistakes I make. So you can create your own. Send it me over on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, wherever you follow me. I will be very receptive to what you share. And yeah, let's just get on with it. We haven't got every single diss track ever here, of course. I couldn't include everything. I included as many as I could, some of the more iconic ones. And I've started with Dr. Dre, with his kind of like NWA diss, you know, Eazy-E diss, which also features Snoop Dogg, of course. They are just basically synonymous, and like they're kind of like glued together on this album. Like it's as much of a Snoop album as it is a Dre album, honestly. But yeah, of course, a really slick G-funky West Coast track that the way they're just kind of gliding on the beat just feels so effortless. Even Snoop comes through as well and kind of is like, you know, you can't come for death row, la 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 la. He's kind of coming in saying his own stuff too, kind of like, you know, siding with Dre as like a kind of like, you know, hype man behind the scenes, as if like, you know, you come for Dre, you're coming for me too. And yeah, Dre, I mean, I've never really rated that highly as a rapper, honestly, but I do think he's kind of in his own element here, kind of telling it and laying it down as it is. So I think this is a good track, actually. I think I need to go back to the Chronic, because honestly, when I went back to it a few years ago, it didn't really land with me as well as I'd remembered it when I was a teenager. I thought some of the bars, and again, Dre's rapping's kind of just a bit, it's kind of like a serviceable rapper, honestly. Just kind of like being held up and propped up by the production. So I maybe need to go back to this one, but yeah, I do think this track is really good and isn't anything like massively scathing, but I think it's just, like I said, the slickness, the kind of laid back vibe, and just kind of how chill they are about it. They're just kind of like, you know, kind of telling you as it is, but they kind of feel, casual about it, which I quite like. But the response that you get from Eazy-E is none of those things. None of the bars land at all. Nothing is stand out at all. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. This track just doesn't really resonate at all to me. It's kind of a night and day difference where you've got, those guys playing it kind of chill, sounding kind of easy breezy about it, but then Easy's almost like trying a bit too hard and nothing even lands, nothing even really resonates. It's just a bit of a weak track to me, man. Yeah, nah. Not the worst. It's not going to quite land in F, but D for me is just kind of like the mid tier where it's just going to be like stuff that, again, the bars aren't strong enough to really stick, but it also isn't like a replayable track either, and it's not something I'd ever want to listen to. And yeah, you know what, honestly, the more time passes from the NWA days, you kind of realize that Ice Cube was carrying these guys because he was really the only like properly good rapper in that group. The rest that were there, they're just so average. And I know Eazy-E's considered a legend and is often brought up in like top 50 rappers of all time conversations, but I'm not just gonna succumb to the pressure of what everyone else thinks has to be in the top 50 rappers of all time. This guy ain't that good. Like, Eazy was not that good. And yeah, this kind of shows it for me. And amidst all of this, we then have the real gold standard for what a diss track should really be doing. This kind of set the bar, really, for the rest of diss tracks to come, because this is truly one of the earliest and most scathing and most impactful diss tracks really we had. And yeah, this is essentially as good as everyone says. No Vaseline by Ice Cube, of course, kind of coming again for everybody in the NWA camp, but also the record label and how they kind of were screwed over by that. And then essentially Ice Cube throughout the song is basically saying, you're getting fucked over by the big boys and the white guys that are just here for the paycheck, which of course is just hilarious, really, the way it's worded. And every line is like bam, 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 bam. I'm obviously not gonna, sit here and condone some of the more homophobic lines that get thrown out in the track. It's a historical thing, really, because a lot of hip hop, I mean, even today, it still has a real problem with that. But yeah, back in the 90s, I mean, a lot of these diss tracks are just going to be kind of having all kinds of lines that focus on that, which I'm not really here for, but it's only a small portion of the track because very much everything else Ice Cube is just kind of like just smacking, like punching, just basically like nobody can take a breath or take a moment to just chill or like take a break from it. Like nobody can hit back. He is just absolutely annihilating everybody here. And yeah, this is one of the best ever, man. Come on, just crazy stuff. Yeah, like I say, Ice Cube absolutely by far and away the highlight of NWA, and proved it even when he went solo. Like he was still absolutely killing it with tracks like this. So yeah, crazy stuff. And again, I think really one of the most influential we've ever had in the genre, because it really just changed, I think, about a lot of how diss tracks then came about beyond this too. Alright, we're going to throw in Common here, The Bitch in You, which I've linked here because this is actually an Ice Cube diss, which I don't think has any linking to this track or any of the stuff that was going on. This is quite a few years later, and I think there was a bit of a back and forth between them. And yeah, I mean, talk about one of the most underrated diss tracks ever. The beat is so good on this track, and coming from Common as well, I still get blown away by Common doing this, because Common always seemed like a bit more of like a, I don't want to say preachy, but he always seemed like kind of like one of the kind of calmer rappers who wouldn't really involve himself in this kind of stuff and will just make more kind of like, peaceful sounding music, which probably sounds a bit cringe to say, but he has a bit of a corny side to Common, and I feel like him coming through with this, I mean, he really takes out Ice Cube. I just would never think in a million years the guy that can come for Ice Cube and do a pretty good job on him would be Common. Very underrated diss track. Again, has replayability about it too. Like, I genuinely would play this just as a standalone song, and a lot of the bars are pretty harsh. I mean, some of them as well, like, kind of feel like a bit hokey, where it's like, oh, you've not sold anything, you've not been relevant since this album, and that kind of wasn't really true. But yeah, you get that a lot in these kind of diss tracks. You kind of just kind of attacking any part of the artist you can, but apart from those lines, I think it's a pretty damn great one. I'm putting it in an A. I think it's definitely up there and deserving. All right, we've got Tupac Biggie next. I mean, essentially starting from Who Shot You, which I haven't included because I don't even know if that track is actually even about Tupac. I think what happened was Tupac just basically interpreted it that way, which we have another little battle later on to talk about here as well, which has a similar thing where one rapper interprets it one way and it kind of turns out to be a bit of a flop. But this one, Hit 'Em Up, is kind of on the No Vaseline level, actually. It's just absolutely brutal. I mean, some of the lines are just like, you cannot say that, man. Like, some of basically talking about wanting to kill this guy, one of the most vicious and sadly, like, real life diss tracks we've ever had, because of course we know how all of this ended. Both of them ended up dying because of this beef, and obviously if you were to take away these tracks and keep both of them alive, I mean, I think that's a pretty easy answer here. You wouldn't want people dying over hip-hop beef, of course. But just as a battle, as tracks, they are, I mean, even the Biggie response, which I think came after he died. I think this, like, it was released on his Life After Death album, so I'm not even sure if this song was released as he was alive. I'm not entirely sure on that. Again, you're talking to a guy who wasn't living through this, so kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, man, just outrageous stuff. Obviously not as good as Hit 'Em Up. I mean, Hit 'Em Up as just a standalone track is just one of the best hip-hop songs ever, let alone diss tracks. But yeah, so many scathing lines. The chorus is super catchy as well. The Outlaws feature as well, coming from Mobb Deep on the song too. Yeah, I mean, there was just no room to breathe again. Similar to No Vaseline, I think if you've just got that gnarliness about your delivery, and you've got a flow that you can kind of keep up with, and you're just continuously like throwing out shots in the way that these guys do, it ends up becoming the most substantial and exciting diss songs ever. And yeah, these two, again, very much the gold standard. And I would even argue, that gnarliness that came from Tupac probably gave Kendrick a lot of inspiration for how he approached his battle with Drake, which we're going to get to later. Obviously, Tupac is very much an inspiration on Kendrick, as he's very clear about. But yeah, I just think the way he kind of just really had that viciousness about him has had a massive influence, even more so than No Vaseline. So yeah, come on. Perhaps one of those battles, if I'd lived through, I'd have maybe cared a little bit more about. Saying that, I could continuously say that throughout this video, and it wouldn't really make much of a difference because I didn't live through most of these really. But yeah, I mean, the Ja Rule Loose Change, my god, man, just talk about homophobic, man. He's literally calling everybody gay. Every friggin' third line, he's just calling somebody gay in this song. It's just really kind of weak. His delivery, though, is where it actually kind of feels like, holy moly, like this guy's got something. But the individual lines and the individual bars, I mean, if you're that kind of person that finds that kind of thing funny, sure, I guess, but yeah, just weak all round. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think anybody's going to get mad at me putting Ja Rule in the D tier, but I think, yeah, the bars themselves are just kind of weak. The last line about Haley, though, is like, oh wow, okay, but the way Eminem flips that and has Haley saying that starting line on the track just completely wipes out any power that the Ja Rule line had. So yeah, I mean, hearing that was like, wow, but then hearing Eminem say what he said with Haley, yeah, I mean, it just kind of killed that line completely. So yeah, kind of squashes that entirely. Eminem doesn't even have a verse on this track, by the way. It's just him doing the hook, which I think is kind of bizarre. But yeah, it's just D12 kind of all coming together to gang up on Ja Rule. I'm not going to lie to you. Aside from that Haley thing, uh, yeah, man, I don't think there's much to this song either. I mean, it's better than the Ja Rule one, obviously, and I'm putting it above the Eazy-E one for sure. In fact, I'll put the Ja Rule one above that too. I will order them within the tiers, if in case you don't know. But yeah, neither song are particularly good. What an underwhelming, boring beef. Like, I think if I lived through this, I still wouldn't care that much about it either. Like, Ja Rule just isn't significant enough of a rapper to care about, and Eminem probably would have had the best verse on this song if he actually done a bloody verse, but he decides not to. Maybe that's the whole point. He just doesn't think Ja Rule is important enough to even have a verse about. But yeah, I just not don't care here, really, honestly. So yeah, this is the thing. Another Eminem beef will pop up later on too, and Eminem, his enemies and his targets and his beefs are just so uninteresting because the targets and the people he's up against are just completely insignificant in the world of hip hop. Ja Rule at the time was big, so I don't want to completely take away how much power he had in the mainstream, but I don't think people were going to him for bars. Even the hip hop heads at the time probably weren't listening to him for bars. They were just listening to him to have a fun party song, like, just to kind of chill to. And yeah, Eminem taking him out isn't really that impressive, honestly. And yeah, I just would love, maybe we're still due one before, Eminem calls it a day completely. But I would just love Eminem to come up against somebody that actually mattered in the world of hip hop. Because this guy is considered the GOAT by many people. And I think if you're that good, let's see you come up against a Titan. Let's see you come up against a Pusha T. Let's see you come up against maybe even a Kendrick, honestly. Like, I would just love that because his targets are just kind of weak. All right, next we've got one of the most famous beefs in hip-hop history with Jay-Z and Nas. It didn't obviously start at the takeover. It did start before that, and then Jay-Z kind of responded with this track, but I just went with the more significant tracks, Takeover, Ether, being the famous ones. This track actually has a lot of lines focused on Mobb Deep, in fact. So yeah, it's not entirely just a Nas diss, but of course it is pretty significant, the things he says about Nas with the whole kind of amount of albums he's selling, and Nas kind of shit the bed since his debut and hasn't really put out anything significant or anything worthwhile, all that kind of stuff, and Jay-Z's at the top of his game. Jay-Z in this beef comes across similarly, in my opinion, to how Drake did, in the sense that he's not just targeting one person, he's targeting multiple people. Obviously, Drake had like quite a few people that he was targeting in his diss tracks, and also the angles he takes here are very similar too, in the fact that Jay-Z was obviously one of the biggest rappers around at that time, was selling crazy numbers. Obviously, Drake similar as well. And yeah, it's kind of similar parallels to that for me with the way Jay-Z approaches this. So I think as a diss, I think it's all right. But as a track, I think it's really fun. Like I when I used to listen to this song, just playing it in my leisurely time as I did, I would just enjoy the song for what it was, regardless of the lines he was throwing out at Mobb Deep and Nas and stuff like that. But yeah, disses wise, I don't really think there's a huge amount here. The 4 albums in 10 years I can divide thing, I don't really think is that great line, even though it's pretty iconic. I mean, J. Cole kind of assembled that line in his own way on the 7-minute drill. So yeah, it's a pretty iconic line, but it's not that great, really. Yeah, I mean, sure, it's for a diss, it's okay. But yeah, maybe one of my more controversial opinions here, and perhaps even more controversial, is my opinion on Ether, which I think is obviously better than Takeover as a diss, and it's more focused, it's more scathing, it's more direct than obviously Jay-Z coming from multiple people at once. But I gotta say, probably the most overrated diss track ever, which hopefully isn't the one takeaway you get from this video, because I will have a lot of opinions in this video, and I hope people don't just come for me for just saying that. But yeah, I've got to say, man, Nas clearly obviously won the beef. But it's not that far and away a winner in the way some of these other ones are, Like, clearly, Ice Cube far and away took out NWA. no coming back from that. Just an obvious knockout winner, far and away, you know. Um, but like this one, yeah, I've always felt like there wasn't really that much in it, and I'll say right now, I love both Jay-Z and Nas, so I have no sort of bias against either of them. I actually think Nas is better, and I think has the better albums between them both, and overall is just a better rapper. And I think later in his career, over the past few years, although not all of the albums recently have been that great, I think some of them have got gassed up a little bit too much. But it's shown, like, even like pushing 50, the guy still got it, right? I think Nas is clearly better than Jay-Z overall, right? But yeah, I don't think this beef is that clear as of a winner. I don't think Nas completely took out Jay-Z. I don't think Ether is that much of a kill shot as people say it is. I think some of the lines, Gazy, Cockefeller, is like really corny. I think Nas does benefit from just being like a better rapper overall and is more efficient with his lines and doesn't really focus on the numbers and that kind of stuff like Jay-Z is. So it was an easy way to kind of just like, you know, Jay, you haven't really said much about me here. Let me just take you out. Like, Ether does a good job of that, but I don't know, man. I don't think it's that amazing of a track, honestly. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Perhaps probably my most controversial opinion in the whole video here, but yeah, I mean, just never really completely blew me away like it does other people. People would have this in S or at least A, so I'm kind of dropping it quite far down here, but that's just how I feel. All right, we got Ja Rule popping up again as a target for 50 Cent. What was going on in the 2000s? Why was Ja Rule like the guy people want to take down? Was it because of his popularity? Was there something else? Somebody maybe could tell me in the comments. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to put this one in C as well, back down. I'm not the biggest fan of 50 Cent, honestly. I think some of his flows are kind of get stagnant. I think often his like prowess comes in the fact that he can kind of make a catchy like track in a similar to like Drake did, really. But when you read into a lot of the bars, similarly to Drake, they're not really that great. There's not really that much going on. And yeah, 50 Cent for me shouldn't be like in the GOAT conversations like he is for a lot of other people. So yeah, maybe again a bit of a controversial opinion there, but I just don't really see it, and I don't really care enough about this beef to really think, oh, 50 Cent did crazy things to Ja Rule. However, let's talk about this one from Jadakiss, which is a target against 50 Cent because 50 Cent just had a chip on his shoulder. I mean, he's obviously a tough guy, and he'd probably kill me in a heartbeat, obviously. So I'm not going to try and act like I'm going to take out 50 Cent or anything like that. He's obviously, you know, big and scary. But he had a chip on his shoulder. I think he thought he was a lot better than he was and would just kind of fire shots at a lot of people. Even today, you know, the kind of weird siding with Drake that he does and some of the weird sort of subliminals towards Kendrick that he's kind of come through with in interviews a little bit over the past year or so. Like, he really thinks he's a much better rapper than he actually is. And he was firing shots at all kinds of people. Jadakiss being one of them. And Jadakiss kind of took him out, man. Like, this is a great track. Another one similarly to Common, where don't get talked about much in the historical landscape of diss tracks, but two truly great ones that should be talked about more. Yeah, this is great. And guess who's on the beat? Alchemist, who will be mentioned later on too. Alchemist is kind of impressive for his longevity. He's there for a beef from the 2000s, and he's here in the 2020s with another beef too. So that's pretty impressive to know that Alchemist is doing that and has that longevity. So yeah, it's just another little side note. But yeah, I'm impressed with all these bars, kind of talking about how his flows aren't that great, and you know, like, yeah, sure, you sold all this, but you ain't got that much to you and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a good diss here. I'm pretty impressed with it. I think it's a really good song. All right, now we got a prominent female rap beef between Lil Kim and Nicki Minaj, and Lil Kim raps over a Pharaoh Monch beat, which is a pretty good beat, but this is the suffering of what a lot of diss tracks, well, not a lot of them, but I think a lot of weaker diss tracks fall into the trap of, and it's just and this is going to sound anti-hip-hop, and I really don't want it to sound like that, because this is obviously not what I'm trying to say, but it's just bars, and there's no change up, there's no flow switch, there's no like standout line. She's just rapping, and she's probably taking a note from the classic days of hip-hop and just kind of going straight at it in a bar fest, and probably, bar for bar could probably out rap Nicki, if we're being honest. I don't think that's too controversial, really. But yeah, I just think she dropped the ball here. I think she really could have really laid something on Nicki, honestly. But she just drops the ball with the diss, and it's just kind of boring, and the beat gets boring. And ultimately, by the end of the song, that little kind of mimic of Nicki right at the end, and she's like, well, actually, like trying to pretend that Nicki's going to be really scared, and she does this little like, I did, it wasn't really about you, Lil Kim, I'm sorry, like, and like, it just doesn't work, because Nicki Minaj is not gonna do that. Like, Nicki Minaj is not gonna back down here. She's very confrontational, she's very upfront with what she says, and that little ending just kills the song completely, because it's like, there's no way that's going to happen. And clearly it didn't, because obviously we have Stupid Ho from Nicki Minaj, which is just one of the most outrageous and bonkers diss tracks ever, honestly, for just how wacky and ridiculous it sounds. I would be very tempted to put it in S, because I don't think many other rappers would even dare try and make such an animated and weird and off-kilter diss track like this. So props to Nicki for going all out with it. But I think ultimately it's about C. Like, it's better than the 50 Cent one. But yeah, if you read the bars and stuff, it kind of isn't that great. And again, that's always been my thing with Nicki. Like, there's a lot of talent there in terms of how she raps and her flows, but the bars themselves, I think, could have been stronger. And honestly, if you were to read bar for bar, Lil Kim might have had more, like, better lines, but her delivery and the way she presents a song is just not that great, and it doesn't land anything or doesn't do enough to hit Nicki, whereas Nicki just went way all out. And yeah, I think that's kind of the ultimate result here. Nicki clearly won. And funnily enough, for the next beef I'm going to talk about, Meek Mill and Drake, I have some similar things to say as to what I did about the Lil Kim and Nicki Minaj beef, in that Drake presented the song in a more memorable fashion and made it more sticky, and the one-liners stood out more, just a little bit like what Nicki did. And then Meek Mill probably, again, has a little bit more to say and has more interesting angles to take, but the presentation, I just don't think is quite there. And that ultimately is how we ended up seeing Drake clearly win. But what I will say, similar to Nicki Minaj, it's not an emphatic win. I will say that. I think Back to Back is probably one of the better tracks in the C tier here. But yeah, I don't think it's as emphatic as people make out. I think what made it so, victorious was just the back-to-back aspect of it. Because clearly that was a very, very clever way to approach the beef. And we hadn't actually really seen that done in that kind of way before from such a prominent rapper, dropping a track and then hitting them again before they even had a chance to reply, and maybe completely, knock them off their perch a little bit. And, Meek might have even already had a reply, and then he was like, oh, god damn, he stopped another song, I'm going to have to do another track or something like that. It's a very clever tool, and Drake was very, clever for taking that approach. And yeah, but as a track, yeah, I mean, maybe one of the more overrated songs, honestly. Back to Back, it's catchy, it's got a good hook, the beat's good. Drake's kind of just sounding like he's having fun on the song, which works in his favor, but the actual disses, the actual bars, I don't think are that great. The famous one about, is this your tour or your girl's tour, whatever he says, obviously stands out for a lot of people. But yeah, it's not like something that really resonates with me. I think it's just fine. I think it's funny to an extent, but yeah. And another thing, like I said about Eminem, like the target is just kind of weak, really, because Meek Mill's presentation on this song, just like, the guy was never that great of a rapper, so you're taking out somebody that was really kind of easy to take out ultimately. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think Meek Mill dropped the ball here because, again, I think he has a lot of things he could say in response to Back to Back. He has a lot of things he can say about Drake. This, I think, actually started from Meek Mill tweeting or something about Drake's having ghostwriters, and that for me just epitomizes how much Meek Mill dropped the ball. Because why would you do that via social media? Why wasn't the original song to come at Drake a diss track about how he uses ghostwriters and how he's fake and all this, that, and the other? He just left it too late to put it in a song, really, because he does it here and he talks a little bit about it there and he talks about how Drake's fake and all this kind of stuff. But he's done it after Drake's already kind of took him out with Back to Back and Charge It Up. So yeah, just drop the ball. A better rapper would have really approached this more efficiently and done a better job. And that's why I can't say that Back to Back is that great, because it's like, come on, man, Meek Mill. Like, we've seen Drake come up against actually really good rappers, and we've seen the result of both of those, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Like, you kind of see that Drake, when he's actually really up against it, fumbles it. And I always said at the time, like, I want to see Drake up against someone better, even at the time, because this is one of the first rap disses I lived through, like battles. I was, into music back then. I was watching it as it was kind of going along. Like, yeah, like, and I even said at the time, like, nah, like, Meek Mill's easy. Like, let's see Drake come up against someone really good, because he's going to celebrate this. He's going to play it on tour. He's going to act like he's a big, big winner. But real ones know that Meek Mill was pretty easy, and yeah, Meek Mill dropped the ball too much here. Right, a bit of a random as hell one. Again, proving what I said about Eminem's targets here, but MGK versus Eminem, couldn't care less about this, honestly. Like, again, lived through it, paid attention to it at the time, remember listening to both the tracks and being like, why is this going on? Like, so random. But yeah, Eminem kind of showing once again that if you come up against him, he will basically end your career, essentially. And Rap Devil, I mean, some of the lines, like, you're a rap god, I'm a rap devil. Like, the whole thing's hilarious, because, like, MGK on the song sounds like a Temu version of Eminem. And your whole angle is attacking the guy that literally is clearly influencing how you're rapping, your cadence, your flow, your tone of voice. Like, it is really funny. Like, it sounds like the guy, the friggin' the Incredibles, the kid who's obsessed with Mr. Incredible. It sounds like and then he becomes Syndrome later on. Like, it's literally that. But if Syndrome just was crap and did nothing, like, yeah, basically just bizarre. And yeah, I mean, Kill Shot, I'll put it in C. It's got some really funny lines in it, man. Like, how Eminem, I like as well in this track, he will happily mock himself. Like, MGK says something about how he dresses, and then Eminem's like, yeah, I don't dress well, but I rap better than you. And I just think that line probably was enough to kill off MGK, honestly. I did like what Eminem did there. That was funny. Yeah, a lot of funny lines. Lots about how, you're just trying too hard to have that flash in the pan moment. And once you're gone, like, you will be nothing. And it is quite prophetical, because that is what happens. So yeah, you kind of have to hand it to Eminem, but it was just way too easy, man. Like, it was just far too easy. MGK ditched the genre of hip hop after this, basically, and started doing pop punk and emo stuff, right? But even when he was doing the hip hop stuff, everybody and their mums knew that this guy was no good. And it's just, once again, for me, it's like, Eminem, I want to see you come up against somebody a bit more tougher than this guy, because it just wasn't enough. Like, MGK just didn't have enough. You really have to love the modern day of hip-hop, because some of these beefs spanned over like a year, months and months and months, and living through that, you'd probably get impatient waiting for the rapper to reply. But God, man, Infrared, Duppy Freestyle, and the story of Added On like literally happened in the space of like 2 weeks or something. Like we're so spoiled nowadays, man, because Infrared happens right at the end of Daytona. It's very subliminal, honestly. Like, it is obviously about Drake and other rappers who are fake, not real. This stuff's been thrown at Drake for years, like absolutely thrown at Drake for years. I think there's no smoke without fire with that kind of thing. Like, somebody's got to be telling the truth with this. Like, Drake is clearly not the guy who he says he is. I think that's all kind of true. And yeah, he replies with Duppy Freestyle, which actually is also attacking Kanye too, but obviously Pusha T for the things he was saying on Infrared. And, I'm keeping it in D because, it's better than some of these other ones. Probably the highest of the Ds, in fact. But I said this at the time, and I still maintain it. Drake needs a stronger delivery in his beefs because it's so hard to be convinced by him a lot of the time. And I don't know if it just comes with the fakeness, it comes with the fact that he never really was about all the stuff he kind of rapped about and stuff. And I don't know if that just exists in the way he approaches beefs as well, aside from really back-to-back, I guess. But yeah, because back-to-back plays to his strengths. Back-to-back plays to his strengths. It's a catchy, replayable song. It's a double entendre. I'm going to play this back-to-back, and you will play this back-to-back because it's a fun song. You will listen to this over and over again, and obviously he back-to-back Meek Mill. It plays to his strengths because he knows he can make the catchier, more memorable song, even though his bars won't be that great because he just isn't that much of a rapper, right? And Duppy Freestyle just highlights to me that problem with Drake where it's like he's not landing anything here because the way he delivers the lines just isn't, like, there isn't enough emphasis, there isn't enough to it. And again, I'm not trying to act like I could do it. I'd be absolutely ripped to shreds if somebody came for me. Like, I'm not trying to act like I know what I'm doing, man. But I'm talking about the sport of the game, I'm talking about the love of the game and what I want to see Titans come up against each other and do. And Drake just doesn't always have it, I'm afraid. And Duppy Freestyle is a great example of that. I just don't get convinced by anything. I don't feel like he's really that angry. I don't feel the passion behind his bars. And we finally see that the minute Drake is up against a fucking psycho, a supervillain, a menace to society, he will get ripped to shreds. And I am not here for the bloody narrative that the only reason Pusha T won is because he revealed the child and he was hiding a child. No. That is not true. That is obviously a great chess move and has kind of changed the game for how rappers, I think, will enter beefs and how they will approach them, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But yeah, man, just crazy. He rips him to shreds. He talks about his pride. He talks about the fact that you this way because your father left you when you were 5. And there's just all of these things about his kind of like front that he puts on, and Pusha T takes it all back layer by layer and sits this man down and basically rips him apart. And it's honestly, again, the delivery does so much here. It does so much. The obviously artwork is just ridiculous. Pusha T, man, just really takes him out. And it's like, for me, the fact that the song starts with like 40 seconds of just like Pusha T kind of like monologuing to himself and stuff, and it just has this intenseness to it. And when that kind of like, Jay-Z, A Story of OJ beat kicks in, you just know something's going to go down. He just sets it up so brilliantly. And you also know he had more to say, but clearly Drake backed down pretty quickly and just left it at that and admits that he took a loss. But I also think Drake won't admit that Pusha T probably had more on him and just wanted to leave it. and didn't want any more backlash or any more of his public image to be tarnished, because that deadbeat dad thing, which honestly, for all we know, was never even true. Like, Pusha T laid the groundwork here to put out something that we may. Drake could have just been really active behind the scenes. Pusha T could have just been saying it because, oh, well, you never told anybody, nobody knows you have this son, you're hiding him. But it's so brilliantly done, because it is kind of odd. Like, why would you not celebrate the fact you have a son publicly and talk about the fact that you have children in interviews? Like, why would you not do that? But for all we know, behind the scenes, he was a really good dad. We don't know, but Pusha T has damaged that reputation that Drake will never be able to call it back, because he will always have the deadbeat allegations. And Pusha T, yeah, just was a menace in the way he presented it. Just insane stuff. Amazing. What a song. All right, next we have what I was talking about before, where a song comes out and it's interpreted in a way that might not even be the reality of what the artist was saying. And we have Hiss, which is Megan versus Nicki. And yeah, I mean, I'm just putting it there for you to see. I might not land it in B just yet. But honestly, and I've tweeted this before on my Twitter, you can find the tweet or whatever. This song, that's fluff. That's sort of the mic, Ryan, sort it out. This song could be about Drake. It really, listen to the song. It could be about Drake. I think the only part that's about Nicki is the Megan's Law line, which is hilarious. That Nicki Minaj got so offended at that line. Because if you want to know what Megan's Law is, something in my eye now. If you want to know what Megan's Law is, look it up. Look at what Megan's Law is, and then look up the history of Nicki Minaj's husband. Megan's Law is a real thing. It's a law that exists. Nicki Minaj's husband is a real thing that exists, that has a background that you might want to read up on. I'm not talking about it right now. I'm not doing it. And that's the line that Nicki got so angry about. And it's like, how would you... yeah, it's incredible, really. Incredible stuff. So yeah, hilarious. But I do think a lot of the song's actually about Drake. And I think it's about a lot of people that may be hard to identify through bars, that because they're subliminals, really. It's all subliminals. I'll put it in C. I think for what it did, it is kind of hilarious, really. But as a song, it's solid. I think she sounds pretty hyped up, honestly. I'd love to see her in a proper beef, because I think she has an energy to her that would be pretty intense in the midst of a beef, honestly. So yeah, I quite like this track. But yeah, hilarious that Nicki Minaj just took so much offense to it, because I think, honestly, a lot of it's about a lot of rappers, a lot of people talking shit about Megan, and it's kind of just about that and her kind of firing it out and unleashing on nobody in particular. But we see that Nicki Minaj couldn't contain herself and came through with Bigfoot, which is one of the worst diss tracks we will ever hear. And insane that Nicki let this happen, because first of all, she could have just not made a song at all. But we know, like I said before with the Lil Kim thing, Lil Kim dropped the ball because Nicki was clearly going to reply. And she's confrontational, she doesn't really hold up, and she just doesn't have anyone telling her, you shouldn't do this, because what was this? The beat is like the most hippity-hoppity beat I've ever heard. It just sounds like the most generic beat like you've ever heard in the history of hip-hop. The bars are terrible. Like, they're really bad. I mean, I'm not even sitting here and saying Megan Thee Stallion had these amazing bars and was like, whoa. She didn't. But it was effective, and Nicki just had nothing. Nicki had nothing. Really nothing here. And the last minute of the song, where she just sounds like she's having a psychotic episode, and it's trying so hard to be like, I'm scary, Megan, you don't want to mess with me, but it just sounds like she's going crazy. That part is hilarious, man. What a terrible song. I couldn't believe it at the time as well, when Nicki stans were trying so hard to tell us that it was amazing. You had Nicki stans that I genuinely saw tweets that they were like, I think she's going to get top 5 with this. I think she's going to get top 5 with this. It did chart, but died after a week. Like, there was no staying power at all. And this song, ironically, elevated Hiss. Hiss wasn't even that much talked about before until Nicki dropped this track. And guess what? Hiss went number 1. Nicki Minaj making this song brought attention to it so much that Hiss was the one that went number 1. Incredible stuff. One of the funniest beefs ever. And yeah, I said at the time, Megan doesn't even have to reply. She didn't. So funny. Yeah, Nicki, wow. And now we're here for the most recent beef, the biggest beef we've ever seen, really. Bigger than Tupac Biggie, I'll say that. And yeah, perhaps the one you came for when you clicked the video, because I think because it's so recent, I think because people of all ages and the social media era has just made this such a big thing, you were probably interested in seeing where I was going to go with this. But I've talked about these songs a lot. I really have. So I don't know if I have a huge amount new to say, but it's nice to see them ranked in a particular order here. But like that, kicking it off, of course, Future coming for Drake was a surprise. Metro Boomin's beat sounds like he's just kind of attacking him. It's an amazing beat. Really well structured track. And of course, Kendrick's verse, which is the one that set it all off. The song is still such a banger. Like, even if you were just here to listen to Kendrick's verse, you're staying for the rest of it because the beat is so good. And Future sounds great on it for me as well. Yeah, I think it's aging very nicely. And Kendrick's, again, just that like efficiency with how he delivers his lines. It's so effective. It's so well done. You can't not stay for the whole, like, you have to stay for the whole thing. You have to hear what he says next. You have to read into the double entendre. You have to read into the clever lines. And yeah, the fuck the big 3, it's just big me. Such a bomb drop, really, because we had him do this not in such a heavy way with Control. Control, I always felt, was like a warning, like, guys, I'm here. You better watch out because I will take the throne if you don't try your best. And a lot of people read it wrong, and Drake read it wrong, and Drake read it as an attack, and that's why they've had such a back and forth, because this goes way before Like That. It goes way, way, way before Like That. And yeah, Drake just took it the wrong way and didn't accept that. It was about the competitive spirit. It was about Kendrick sitting here and saying, no, I'm taking it. This time, Like That is, nah, this big 3 thing, I'm not here for it. These 2 other guys, I respect them. They make music that I like. They are important to the game, but they are not on my level. And it's such an insult, but it is very true. Let's be honest, man. They're not on his level in any way, shape, or form. Right. And then we had, my eyes are gouging out because of the thought of this song existing. It's not that bad, but the existence of it, I think, has to go in F. It's not as bad as Bigfoot, but the fact that it was so obvious. I said this at the bloody time when it came out, man. He did not sound like he was invested in this. He did not sound like his heart was in it. He did not sound like he wanted to do it. The bars were rubbish. He said nothing on this song. I do not care what J. Cole stands will try and tell you. He said nothing at all. The whole running down and giving his discography and album review one by one was just stupid. The last thing you can come for with Kendrick Lamar is his discography. He's got a claim to having one of the best we've ever seen in hip-hop. J. Cole just had nothing to say. J. Cole had no angle to take it. That first beat is shocking. The second beat is alright. But that first beat is terrible, man. I don't know what he was thinking. And of course, deleting it was smart because he just really did not want to be there. Yeah, man, just not good at all in the slightest. And yeah, Cole stans were trying to bend over backwards. They were trying their hardest. They couldn't do it, and Cole couldn't do it. And yeah, hopefully he ditches this whole greatest rapper alive thing, because I think if you're going to put yourself in that position, all your songs on the off season and on this were telling you, everybody else, how good you are, and I'm this great guy, and nobody can come for me, nobody's on my level, la 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 la. You had the opportunity to seize the moment. You bowed out. I'm not against that, by the way. I think, honestly, admitting you were wrong is an okay thing. I do not mind that. My problem is when you're acting like you're the big tough guy, you're acting like you're better than everyone else, and yet you clearly couldn't take that opportunity to prove it. You know, you can say you're great a million times. Where's the substance to back it up? Where's this greatness that you talk about? And that's what annoys me with J. Cole. It's too much talk, yapping, and not enough action, not proving anybody that he is that guy. And this track very much kind of vindicated what I've been saying about him all along. Go back and watch my off-season review. It's not a positive review, but you will see in that review that I am kind of getting sick of all the bars about how good he is, and yet he's not actually showing us how good he is. Show not tell. Show not tell. Of course, then, a little bit after that, we got Push-Ups, which was leaked and then had a different beat, and then he re-released it with another beat, and then about a week after that, it finally landed on streaming services. It really lacked the confidence, I think, from Drake. It showed a lack of confidence, is what I'm trying to say. Because I think if you're going to really go there, drop the bloody song, man. I think he's just trying a little bit too hard. He was trying to test the waters. He wanted to see the reaction. The reaction was generally quite positive, even from, the hardcore Kendrick Lamar stans. Were kind of like, okay, Drake, you got a bit here. You showed us a little bit. And yeah, he just didn't have the balls to kind of put it out there and let it simmer, really. It was just a bit odd. But it's okay. It's fine. It goes on the C tier for me. I think some of the bars are good. I think shut your ass up and play some drums. Metro was funny. I quite like the short lines. I will say the short lines about Kendrick, what is it he says? How you big stepping with some size 7s. I'm sorry, man. Maybe it's the fact that I'm like relatively tall myself that I find that kind of funny. Maybe if I was a few inches shorter or 5 or 6 inches shorter, I'd be offended by that. But I like the short lines. I'm sorry. I have a soft spot for them. I know. It's sickening. It's disgusting. I'm supposed to be somebody that has more integrity, but I like those lines. Okay, I like them. But yeah, I said it at the time as well, and it kind of showed to be true. It just lacked a direction. It lacked something that Drake could use against Kendrick. There was just not enough bite to it. There was no bite to it. There was just not. He said nothing. He had that Whitney line, which was a bit dodgy. What's that? What's he trying to say there? And yeah, aside from that, there just wasn't much. He threw a few shots around at the Metro and the Future and anyone else, Rick, who was coming for him at the time as well. He was able to share out a lot of his bars, and it was an easy task for him because it meant he didn't have to focus as much on Kendrick. Now, people will say you're coping, people will say you're making excuses or whatever. I think it helped him that he didn't have to focus his entire energy on Kendrick, because he just didn't have enough to say. Even when we get to Family Matters, he still didn't have that much to say. He dropped like a 6-minute track, and still there were lines that weren't even directed at Kendrick. It was better for him that all these people were coming for him at once. It didn't make it harder. It made it easier, because A$AP Rocky, as much as I like him, he's not a battle rapper. That you can take him out with 2 or 3 lines. Like, A$AP Rocky's not going to come back and fire much at you, and he didn't. Like, it was easier for Drake that he had all these other people to focus on. And it might be aging a little weakly even more so now, because the antithesis of the song, the whole point of the song, the whole thing about it was, you're putting all your splits, half your splits or whatever, half your money's going to Top Dog. Half your money's not even yours. And yet now we've learned that his contract situation with UMG is clearly the rockier one. So yeah, it's aging in a bit of a weird way. And Euphoria, I mean, I'll say it, and I said it then, I said it now. Yeah, he won here. He won here. He just, man, Drake just didn't have enough. The legs weren't there. The legs weren't legging, man. He didn't have enough, and Kendrick showed how much of a bloody hater he is, really, that he could do 6 minutes just on Drake. And they were catchy, they were to the point, they were feisty, they were fiery, they were quotable, they were funny, they had a lot of substance, and he took it even further than this. But I still think bar for bar, the writing, the double entendres, the execution, the beat switches as well, which were great. I think he already took him out here. I've always said it. I think history might even vindicate that too. I think these songs, Push-Ups, and Family Matters, won't age all that well, honestly. And I think we will see that this was just too much for Drake to keep up with. It was a step too far. It was just too much of a gap between them. And yeah, Euphoria is just excellent. All right, let's finish off with these last tracks here. I've already kind of insinuated my general thoughts on Family Matters. I'll put it at the top of the D. I think there are elements of it that are pretty good. Focusing at this point on the other guys that were coming for you at the same time, you shouldn't have been dropping lines for Rocky when you were in the thick of it. Because I haven't even included it here, but 616 in LA also dropped after Euphoria, which I could have included on this tier list for sure. That's a great track, but I don't think it had quite the impact as the other one, so I just didn't include it. And same with Tailor Made Freestyle. Again, kind of was in the midst of it, but I just don't think it quite had the legs or the impact that the others did, despite the fact that 616 in LA is brilliant. But yeah. And Family Matters in the thick of it, when you've already had these tracks going back and forth, clearly in the middle of a battle. It's going on, it's happening right now. Save your energy for Rocky, for Future, for Rick, for Metro. The Weeknd, bloody hell. The Weeknd had bars directed at him on this track, man. The Weeknd. You were coming for The Weeknd in the middle of your battle with Kendrick Lamar. Just... You got it all wrong. You took all the wrong moves. You moved wrong. You did it all wrong, Drake. And I won't let anyone convince me otherwise. I don't want to be seeing tweets about the best song from the beef was actually Family Matters, man. Yeah, that's the most replayable. You just like the beat. You just like that Drake has catchy melodies. You didn't listen to the bars. You didn't listen to the lyrics. You don't care about the hip hop essence that beefs are meant to have. You just want Drake to give you a catchy song, and that's okay. But don't pretend that you have any interest in hip hop as a genre if you're going to tell me Family Matters was the best track of the beef, man. I'm sorry, man. There's just no way. The last verse had more to it. Obviously, the Kendrick just opened his mouth. Somebody better hand him a Grammy. I still find that quite funny. And of course, the reveal, if you want to call it that he actually is abusive, and Whitney needed a bodyguard this whole time, which he said in Push-Ups, for the reason that, to protect himself from Kendrick. It didn't really land, I don't think, and it got completely squashed by Meet the Grahams, which I'm going to put in B. And the reason for that is I still think we need a little bit more coming out about Drake for it to be any higher. I think it could potentially become the best diss track of all time. If the daughter is real, if there's more stuff that comes out about Drake's relationship with women and what he does in behind the scenes and all of that, I think we just need a little bit more. And I still see people say that it doesn't need that because of how effective and how menacing and how vitriolic and how sinister it is, because, oh my God, it is. But I still think I need a little bit more. I think the daughter is real. If I'm offering my own opinion, I think she's real. I think she's 100% real, and I think the reason for that is because Drake is clearly very promiscuous, and I think he has, similarly with Adonis, has had relations with women and has kids to in multiple places. I think she's real, 100%, but we don't know that, and I can't just go off that. And I think that is a big part of the song. It's not the only part of the song. It's one part of a section of a song where he writes letters to literally everybody in Drake's family and takes down each person. And I like the angle that he takes. I like that it's like protecting women. I like that it's like, this guy is dangerous. You've got to keep him away. But I think we just need a little bit more out there to prove this right. Or was it all just a concept that Kendrick imagined? Was it all because he knew Drake would take it there? He'd mention his family. He'd mention something about Kendrick. And that's why Kendrick had this cooked up and dropped it 30 minutes after Family Matters came out. Like, a lot of things lined up for Kendrick to be in the better position here, because it really did sound like he had insider information, like he was saying on 616 in LA, because you can't make this song if you don't know that Drake has Family Matters in the bank. Like, he had to know something. You can't put this out. The fact that it's Family Matters and the title of the track is Meet the Grahams and each track is about somebody in Drake's family is crazy. He knew something behind the scenes. So Kendrick has the upper advantage here. He knew stuff that Drake clearly didn't. But yeah, Not Like Us, the ultimate anthem for diss tracks and one of the best diss tracks of all time. Good God, man. It's so done, like, ridiculously well. It's just so catchy. It's so effective. The one-liners aren't as brutal or as heavy or as, you have to read into it as much as Euphoria or obviously Meet the Grahams. But, man, it's snappy. It's to the point. There's so many different clever ways he words things, Neighborhood Watch, get this guy's on a list. Yeah, just everything. And the last verse as well, the culture vulture angle that he takes, I think is very clever. I think it's very smart. I will say Kendrick sounds more angry that Drake is a Canadian and has used hip-hop to his advantage than he does sound angry about the fact that Drake is a dodgy guy with women. I think that's something that's come across a little bit more over the past year, honestly. But I still think he cares enough, because he wouldn't have made Meet the Grahams. But yeah, it's going in S. It's excellent. I think Tupac takes it, though. I think Hit 'Em Up is probably still the best diss track ever, with Story of Adidon not far behind, and the two Kendrick tracks basically neck and neck. And yeah, Ice Cube taking the 5th place there. I think that is very much of the top 5 of all time. And we're just going to leave it here with The Heart Part 6, which was just bizarre. And the Professor Sky does a great video on this, where everyone keeps saying that Drake denies the allegations in this song, so therefore Kendrick needs to make his own song where he denies the allegations. But the double negatives and the way he words the denials, it really doesn't sound convincing. Like, Drake clearly, there is no smoke without fire, man. Drake clearly has had some relations with teenagers and all that kind of stuff, man. There is something there to this. And Kendrick said, I've got more stocks. I believed him as well. Pusha T said he had more in the bank too. And I think it's funny, each time that comes out of somebody's mouth, Drake simmers down. And he didn't go too far in Heart Part 6. It sounded like more of a white flag wave. I'm done here. I'm calling it there. There's no more tracks from me. And you wouldn't say that if you felt that Kendrick was going to come back even harder and say something else. Drake knew Kendrick had something else in the bank. And this song epitomizes that. And the whole Oh my god, do you think I'd be famous if I was doing these things? I wouldn't, I'd have been caught by now. It's crazy to say when the whole P. Diddy stuff was just starting to come out. R. Kelly had just had all that stuff coming out a couple of years before. These incredibly famous, powerful people in the music industry. Yeah, so they weren't caught. Like, they were famous for years and they got caught decades later. Drake, you cannot be for real. You cannot be for real saying that. The whole Mother Eye thing as well is really in bad taste. Yeah, Kendrick knew Drake was kind of waving the white flag here, and that's why he stopped. Drake knew what he was doing here. He just had to get this out there because I think he needed to try and at least flatten those allegations to some degree. I think he felt he had to say something, but he noticeably didn't really come for Kendrick too hard in this track, and it's terrible. And the individual lines that he says are hilariously bad. Yeah. Oh my god, that is a long video. I do apologize. I hope you have had a good time watching, though. I had a lot of things to say here, lots of tracks to talk about, 30 in total, some of the most iconic diss tracks of all time in the hip hop world. Yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this one. I did want to make this video a while ago, but I thought now that we're at the anniversary of the beef from last year, it seemed like a good time to talk about it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Check out my Patreon membership page. You see how hard I work on this, guys. This is not a full-time thing for me. I spend long times on my weekends, spare time, doing this for you guys. So if you are feeling generous, please support me over on there. Check out those as well in the description box. Make your own tier list. I'll send it out over on social media, but it is in the description as well. So you can click it, make your own. Subscribe at the very least, like the video. Have a good day. Goodbye.